You're pathetically predictable, like a moth to the flame. And what about my generous proposal? Are ya in or are ya out? It's you who's out, Gobby. Out of your mind. What is up, guys? Moon Jelly Kevin here, and today I want to go talk about Spider-Man Far From Home. It is 7:30 p.m. in the evening over here in Southern California. I'm currently in the middle of a move. I got a cold, I got a cough going on, but I am super excited. I am stoked. I'm ready to go see Spider-Man Far From Home, the new movie. I wanted to do a quick before and after before we watch. Don't know if I've ever discussed this, but I'm sure on the channel, if you've been following for a while, I am a huge comic fan, and Spider-Man is my #1 favorite all-time superhero. As you guys can see, I am in the middle of a move, so I've got a bunch of random crap just lying around. I've got Spider-Man Maximum Carnage, the wonderful game by Acclaim and LJN. This is the Genesis version. I am reading the current Spider-Man. This one was written by Saladin Ahmed. This one is with Ben Reilly taking up the mantle again, the clone of Peter Parker. I also have over here the Roger Stern Omnibus. I'm currently reading through this. I have various random issues from 80s Amazing and Spectacular Spider-Man. I actually really like Spectacular Spider-Man a lot. Those are a lot of like these really short misadventures with like a bunch of random B-tier villains. And, you know, honestly, the Roger Stern Omnibus as well doesn't quite use a lot of, classic villains. I think it created a classic villain in the Hobgoblin, and I believe the Vulture's in this run as well. But, I mean, you get some random guys like Will-O-the-Wisp, the White Dragon, Stergo, Wraith. It's funny because, like, you can see it over here. They have this, like, these, like, pinups of these B-tier random guys. But, that's kind of what I like about it, because it's kind of like a really interesting, unique take when you have all these, like, second-tier, third-tier villains of Spider-Man. So, big fan of the Roger Stern Omnibus. Obviously, classic stories like Nothing Could Stop the Juggernaut or the Kid Who Collects Spider-Man. Yes, we also have this Marvel Spider-Man Lego set. Still haven't made it. So, huge Spider-Man fan. Super stoked for this film. Now, I feel like the reason why Spider-Man has endured for years and years is his relatability. I feel like regardless of who you are, anyone can feel like Peter Parker at some point where the whole world is crashing down on you. Yeah, I love the character. I've been a fan ever since I was a kid. I kind of got introduced to Spider-Man through the old 90s animated series, and from there I would just pick up random comics. Fun fact, one of the very first things that helped me read and really get into comics was this random issue where it's like they gave it out to kids to promote literacy, and it was Spider-Man Battles Illiteracy, and he travels through some famous literary books. I believe he teams up with King Arthur. I'm going to have to see if I could put that up on the screen somewhere. But anyways, I've got a few more minutes till I got to go run to the theater, so let's grab these DVDs of Spider-Man, run them down. Won't be talking about these animated series, but obviously they are both fantastic. This one is the 90s animated series. This one is the Spectacular Spider-Man. These just happen to be the DVDs that I have. There is nostalgia for the 80s and the 60s series, and even that 2000s new Spider-Man animated adventures, the one that was like loosely tied into the Raimi movies. But I don't have those on me, like I said, in the middle of a move. And as for any Spider-Man beyond that, don't really know. I probably saw random episodes here or there, but not too familiar as I'd like to admit. So, running by these movies, Spider-Man, saw this in theater back in the day. My favorite. Willem Dafoe kicks a lot of butt in this movie. A lot of fun, very kinetic. Not realistic, kind of cheesy, but that's what I love about it. I love that this is a comic book come to life. I know there's a lot of people that say that about a movie, that it's a comic book come to life. This is one of those movies that lives it. I feel like we have a lot of movies nowadays that tries to put superheroes in a realistic world context. This is not realistic. This is pure fantasy. It's an amazing fantasy, pun intended. And I love this movie, still do to this day. Loved it back in the day when I was a kid. Still love it. Still holds up. Going down the line, Spider-Man 2. Did not like this the first time it came out. I thought it was slow. Could not relate to a lot of it. I was super anti-emo, so hearing Dashboard Confessional on the soundtrack made me go, this movie. But as I grew older and more world-weary, I ended up liking this one a lot. I can relate to it a lot more. I remember my initial reactions was that, and the reason why I couldn't stand it as a kid was Doc Ock. I was like, this is not the Doc Ock from the comic. He's not gross. But as I grew older, I was like, holy crap, this is a very human character. This is one of the better versions of Doc Ock. And I've grown to love this, and now it's one of my favorite superhero movies of all time. Spider-Man 3. Saw this one in theaters, and I was in college at this point. We had a friend whose mom worked on the score with Danny Elfman. She plays the harp, so it was kind of cool to see this as a huge group with a college group at a midnight screening. One of, if not my very first midnight screening. And we were all disappointed. As 90s kids, we wanted a cool movie with Venom, and this was not it. But as I grew older, again, this one hits a little bit harder, makes a lot more sense. I actually really like all the ideas here. I actually even really like the idea of the crazy jazz emo Peter Parker. I think they are good ideas. It's just that these elements were not explored well enough. It's too crammed, too many ideas in one film. This definitely should have been 2 films. I really think if they had done that, this would be a much better film. But for what we got, I think it still stands. I'm still highly entertained. And that's something I want to point out, is I don't think there's a single bad, quote-unquote, bad Spider-Man film. This one included. I don't even think this one's bad. So that's Spider-Man 3. There are weaker Spider-Man movies, but there are not a bad one in my book. The Amazing Spider-Man. This is the one that I honestly think is not the one I go back to very often. Again, not thinking that this one is bad per se. I think I was just severely disappointed when this came out because you introduced all these elements that I think were a little bit too stuffed. I mean, coming off of this one that was stuffed and going into this one where you're introducing the whole subplot of who's Peter Parker's parents, was not feeling that one. Everyone praises the Stan Lee cameo. This one, probably one of the best Stan Lee cameos in a movie. But for some reason, just didn't really feel this one. I think it's a little bit just kind of middle of the road. I actually would take the first Spider-Man over the Amazing Spider-Man. I don't know if that's a hot take, but that's me personally. Amazing Spider-Man 2. Everyone rags on how stupid this is, but I am entertained by how stupid this is. I love the Jamie Foxx nerd subplot. I think it's a stupid, overused cliche that you've seen in, like, Batman Forever with Enigma, or Batman and Robin with Pamela Isley, and Aldrich Killian in Iron Man 3. And to see that cliche in Spider-Man 2, I think it took it over the top to the point that it was even stupid to the point of being charming. That's my take. I don't hate this movie. I think this has the same problems as Spider-Man 3, where it's just overstuffed with ideas. Like Dane DeHaan as the Green Goblin. He is so weird and bonkers in this movie, but I am also entertained. Black Cat's in this movie. Again, Rhino's in this movie. It's just too many things. But as a train wreck, I kind of like this. And, you had the storyline of the death of Gwen Stacy. And say what you will, everybody gasped in the theater when Emma Stone bites the bucket, unfortunately. These are the, honestly, just kind of solid, middle-of-the-road Spider-Man movies. I haven't been too blown away by these, but I think they're fine. Like, I don't hate them, but I'm not in love with them. I think the main problem is that there's so many elements that are different from what I think of when I think of Spider-Man. There's so many elements that I think of when I think of Ultimate Spider-Man. Even to the point where they just took out Gonke and made him into Ned Leeds in this movie for whatever reason. The comedy, yeah, it's hit or miss. Comedy's subjective. I think there's a lot of, awkward, womp womp kind of comedy that you kind of see in the MCU. And yeah, these movies are okay. What do I think about Homecoming? I think Homecoming was great. I think I actually like Homecoming more than Far From Home. And a lot of it has to do with the Vulture, played by Michael Keaton. And just the, big reveal of the character in this, and when he has that big, the awkward car ride with Peter Parker. That's the best part of this movie. That's what I think was what really makes me come back to this. Just enjoying Michael Keaton's performance. This one has some visually cool things in it, and I liked the reveal, the fan service of getting J. Jonah Jameson. Man, when I watched this in theaters, the crowd cheered so loud I couldn't even hear it. I couldn't even hear the part where J. Jonah Jameson showed up on screen. But yeah, great movie, but not one of my personal favorites. I think a lot of the high school aspects I didn't care for. The Euro trip aspects, the Brad subplot, yeah, not a big fan. And there's like some time gap that happened between this and this, where it's like, I don't know where this Peter and MJ romance, I would have loved to see it develop a little bit more. But for what I get, like, don't think I'm ragging on these. I think they're just kind of okay. Best Spider-Man movie though, Into the Spider-Verse. I'm sorry. I think you could show anyone who's never watched a Spider-Man movie before, show this, and they could love the character, understand its appeal. I love its general message of everyone can wear the mask. Anyone can be Spider-Man. I like that there's multiple Spider-Man, Spider-People. You could connect with whatever one. A lot of big emotional moments that I feel are classic Spider-Man. Like, this is more classic Spider-Man than these movies. I feel like the whole... I don't want to spoil it, because maybe you're not familiar with the comic. I was already familiar with the comic going in, and there are some changes with the Ultimate Spider-Man storyline and what happens in Into the Spider-Verse, but I feel like they really did a great job with this. Definitely pulls at your heartstring. A lot of kinetic energy, a lot of flow, and the art direction is fantastic. So, favorite Spider-Man movie? Possibly? I think so. Alright, so there we go. I ran through all the Spider-Man movies. I guess here's the Spider-Man Miles Morales games. These games have been great. First one's great too. But I gotta go. I'm gonna go watch the movie, come back, and hopefully we'll have plenty to say. Alright, so one movie later. I'm not sure what I can possibly say because I'm not going to spoil this movie whatsoever, but I think in short, if I were to sum up what I just experienced, this Spider-Boy has finally become a Spider-Man. This is a Spider-Man movie in which the Spider-Man is Spider-Man. I feel like, honestly, it's like they've been listening to a lot of the criticisms that are widespread set online, and they've kind of addressed them. That said, this is kind of a double-edged sword. I think that they've been paying a little too much attention to the internet because the writing in this movie, at some point, some of the dialogue is just ripping off what the most popular memes are, and that's the script. So I think that's something that can be a little jarring. I think some people are going to be completely cool with that, but for me personally, sometimes it just kind of took me out of the movie. The filmmaking is a little bit kind of rough at some spots. For example, again, I'm trying really hard not to spoil this whatsoever, but there's a scene that's very similar to another scene that you've seen in another movie, and that other movie did the scene so well. The pacing is so good. It's drawn out, suspenseful, little, cheesy in tone, but still suspenseful. In this movie, you see a very similar scene, and it's like the same scene is put on fast forward. In general, I want to say that's a problem with the movie. I think, it's very fast-paced, and granted, that's kind of expected because it's a lot of ground to cover in about 2 hours, and I don't know, it's just too much crammed in here, but at the same time, I just wish there was more moments to let just certain scenes breathe and play out and just add a little bit more of that suspense and atmosphere, because yeah, I feel like a lot of this movie had the fast forward button on. Other than that, I will say when compared to other Spider-Man movies, I personally really like the Raimi films. I think because they're generally so simple, they're a little bit more straightforward, and that's not a knock. I think that's a good thing. This movie is ambitious. It has a lot of things it wants to cover, and you know, anytime Spider-Man, like whether it's Spider-Man 3 or Amazing Spider-Man 2, tries to put too much in one movie, it could be a little messy. I think this is a way better movie than Spider-Man 3 or Amazing Spider-Man 2, but still, you can't deny that this movie is a little clunky, and it's hard not to want to compare this to Into the Spider-Verse, which I think was just such a great celebration of everything that's Spider-Man. Into the Spider-Verse is a movie that you could show anyone who knows nothing about Spider-Man and they'd enjoy it. It's a Spider-Man movie for fans old and new, whereas I feel this movie is more of a celebration of the movies, and that goes for all Spider-Man movies. So I feel like if you hadn't seen certain things, again, not spoiling anything that you don't see in the trailers, so you guys know that Alfred Molina, Doc Ock is back, and the Green Goblin is back, and Electro and Sandman are back, and these characters, they make references to their own movies, their respective movies that they were from, and I feel like if you hadn't seen those movies, which I understand if you're a younger audience member or you just got into the movies with the MCU, maybe you're not familiar with these older movies, but I could picture yourself being lost and not nearly being as engaged or being confused. But, honestly, if you're in here for the popcorn action, this kind of movie delivers, so at least I think you'll be able to enjoy it on that. But some of the deeper lore stuff, I don't know. I don't feel it's really newcomer friendly. Again, I don't really think this movie is for newcomers per se, but I'm just saying that was the beauty of something like Into the Spider-Verse, and that anybody could jump in and enjoy that movie. So that's it. That's my thoughts, my first impressions on No Way Home, and hopefully you guys are enjoying this movie. Let me know what you guys think on the comments below. Thank you guys so much for watching, and have a wonderful day. Bye.